Hello, hello. Welcome to another edition of the Touch a Cell Show brought to you by Sickle Cell Advocacy and Management Initiative. I hope you can see us clearly and hear us clearly. Not sure how network is for you guys, but I hope everything is sharp. Of course, we have challenges with network now and then, but we hope to be able to give you something inspiring as we are going to be doing part 2 of building a career as a person with sickle cell disorder. So I have with me my second psychic, Amolala. You're muted.
Good
Hi,
evening,
Lola. How are you?
Good evening,
Good evening. How was your week?
It was actually quite productive, and for the viewers wondering why my background is very dark today,
Shadowy.
I must say, I'm in Africa. I'm experiencing NEPA, so that's it.
It's something we have to walk around regardless of the situation.
Yes,
so
and
good
we
to
have to
see you
keep the
again.
advocacy
Yes,
working. It
yes.
has to keep going
We
on,
have to keep
whether we
going.
have NEPA or not.
Exactly. We have no choice. We have no choice. So
Yeah.
so I'm going to bring on my guest one by one. I'll introduce the first person, which
Okay.
is Tola Dende, and then Lola will introduce our next guest and we'll bring her up too. So my first guest is Tola Dende, and she is a she has worked at BBC in London for over 2 decades. Whilst working there, Tola studied French at the university. Then she has a career and relationship. She has then career and relationship counseling, and later she got a diploma in life coaching. Something I'm very passionate about. Life coaching, and now Tola will write on a weekly basis for Punch newspaper as a columnist on sickle cell disorder. I'm sure for those of you in Nigeria and our warriors, you'd have seen those articles as we're sharing our experiences living with sickle cell. I know I owe Tola an article, but I know I'll get there. Plenty work. And she's also a blogger and has 3 blogs to go on the go. And she's an author and is in the process of publishing her book on sickle cell, which we're going to be looking forward to. We are anticipating, And so welcome, Tola, to the show. Thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you very much for having me this evening. Good evening to you, Tony, and good evening, Lola. I hope you're both well.
Good evening. Good evening. Nice to see you.
Yes, we're very good. All right. So, Lola. Okay, over to you, Lola.
Is Damilola on?
Yeah, she's on. She's on. Straight. I'll bring her on. Yes.
Okay. Hi, Damilola. It's a pleasure to introduce Damilola Adeokun, who is also a project coordinator, a data and business analyst, who has a career of 6 years in 3 different countries. Damilola, thank you for joining. I know for some of our viewers that don't know today, we are 4 ladies from 4 joining this call from 4 different countries. So I'm representing Johannesburg here. I have Tola Dende from the UK, Damilola all the way from Canada, and Titoyi from Lagos. Thank you so much for joining and helping us change this narrative of women living with sickle cell.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for honoring our invitation once again. And I want to kick off with the first question. And I'll go to Tola. You shared you were working for over 2 decades before you now did the freelancing thing. And I'm going to come to the freelancing part. But in your process of working for 20 years, how did you decide where you wanted to go? Was it spontaneous, or did you say, no, deliberately, this is where I want to go? Or like some people, they say, okay, let me look based on my challenge living with sickle cell. How was it for you?
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, interesting question, because I think for me, it was a game of chances. So I arrived in the UK. I don't have any immediate family in London. So you can imagine arriving in your early 20s and you're by yourself. And I had to think on my feet in terms of what do I do career wise. But at the time, I got a job as a sales assistant in a shop. And after I'd done that, as you know, any sales assistant job means standing on your feet. And, talking as a sickler, that's not a good thing, for us. So I decided after a few months of working there that I needed to do something else. This is not the job for me. I need to work in an office. So I went to study typing, computer skills, office skills. I did this short 6 months course. And after I did it, I then registered with employment agencies. And one day I got a call and I was told to go and do some short contract, a week's work at the BBC. Initially, the money wasn't particularly good. And I was like, oh, no, I don't want to work. I didn't think any big deal about BBC, unlike now, maybe if someone says that to me, I'll be like, yes,
Yes.
But at the time I was like, oh, no, I don't want to work there. They were begging me because I was living close to the BBC that they want the building that they wanted to send me to. And I went there for 1 week, supposedly in 1988, yes. And I was there till 2011. So it was a by chance journey for me, to have worked at the BBC for 23 years, So I went in for a short-term contract, but after a while, I was made permanent. And because the BBC is such a big organization, there are offices all over the world and even lots of offices and departments within London. I was able to move and work in different areas of the company. And whilst I was doing that, I was then able to study.
Wow. Damilola, how was it for you? Was it the same process or was your own more intentional?
I think originally when I started out working, it wasn't as intentional. I just wanted to work because I'd been sheltered for so long when I was growing up. I was just like, just get me out there. I want to work. I want to, just make money, meet people, do important things, right? So an uncle of mine knew somebody who was hiring youth corpers, right? So I went to work there. And it was very interesting, actually. It was for a recruitment firm. And so I was there so I started out as a corporate there and I worked really hard because I was just like, yes, this is my chance. I'm not going to blow it, right? So I worked there and then I got retained after my youth service. So I was there for an additional 2 years, 8 months-ish. But what I found towards the end of my stay there was that every few months I would get sick. So it didn't necessarily have to be like a crisis, like a proper crisis where I would be hospitalized, but it would be a chest infection, or it would be malaria, or it would be something, right? And, all of those things sort of trigger your sickle cell as well. So I would take a week off or I would take a few days off. And it was just like this cycle that was never ending. And then I finally had like this big episode in 2014 where I was actually really sick. And up till now, I don't think I've ever been that sick in my life. And that was sort of a wake-up call for me to be like, okay, this is not working. We have to figure out another way to make this work. And so that's sort of when I started thinking, okay, what do I want to do? And so that I didn't know what to do, to be honest. I was just like, this is not working and I need to make a plan. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to take a year off. I'm going to go do my master's. And in that 1 year, I need to figure out what I want to do with my life and how I can still be financially independent while I'm at it. And so that was sort of the beginning for me.
Wow. That's very interesting. I even remember when I tried, I've never really tried, I've never really worked for anybody, but I think the first week of my trying, I decided it wasn't for me. Because I didn't want that situation of, I'm not feeling well today. Oh, why didn't you come to work today? You're not pulling up, all that issue. And then when I was doing, I had the person who was like overseeing me was like being pushy. I want this thing ready. I want it now. And I was like, me, I want to take my time. You will get it. But
I got that too. I'm gonna be honest.
when I did that for 1 week. I don't even think it was up to 1 week. And I just said, no way, this is not for me. But
to be honest,
I think
I did
Lola
get that.
has. Okay.
Sorry, you can go ahead. I think we just lost
She's back.
Tola. Oh,
Yeah,
she's
don't worry.
back.
She's coming on. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It's network issues. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Maybe while I wait for her to come up, I will throw this question directly to Dami.
She's on.
Okay,
she's already on.
She's on. So,
she's already on.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I think she's. Can you hear us? Okay, I'll throw this question to Dami.
Okay, she seems to be frozen.
Okay, can you hear us now? She seems to be frozen.
No, I think she's frozen. So maybe you go in and come out again. Let me just.
Okay. I'll throw this question to Dami. For the purpose of when you were going on your journey to building your career, how did you decide in terms of when you went to school, the courses, were you intentional on the courses that you took?
No, I wouldn't say that I was, to be honest. Because I was, as most sickle cell patients are, like fairly intelligent. My parents wanted me to do medicine, mostly because I think they felt that it would help with like taking care of myself and taking care of my health, and that I would have that knowledge. But I didn't want to do medicine. And so I also didn't really want to do any science courses, but we didn't really have like a lot of career counseling at that time, right? So I was just like, okay, what are the courses that I actually like? And I liked like the social sciences. I also really liked Yoruba, but of course my parents were not going to allow me to read Yoruba. So I decided to go with one of the social sciences, and I chose economics, right? Because I liked it, right? But it wasn't like it was like a burning passion or anything, but I liked it. It was like one of the few subjects that I really liked in school. So I chose economics, and that's why I read economics.
Oh, that's fantastic. Wait, would you say on your first job, okay, she's trying to log in. Would you say on your first job, when you first started working, how was it? What exactly were the trigger? The connection keeps going on and off.
Yeah.
On your first job, would you say that how did sickle cell play a role in you settling into your first job?
I think I was very fortunate, if I'm going to be honest, because I had like this crazy support from my family where I was able to sort of focus on my job. So all I would do was just work. And then when I got home, I didn't really have to sort of do anything else. But so it was a very intense job, right? It was very interesting. Like I got to meet a lot of people. I got to make a lot of contacts, right? So it was a recruitment firm, and we would like recruit expatriate contractors from outside the country. And so like I would go out, we would do meet and greets, I would meet the contractors. Sometimes I would work in the office. So it was very interesting in that way, and I liked it. But the problem with like when you have to like go out is that it's a lot of energy and it's a lot of stress, right? So when I would do all of those meet and greets, and sometimes I would have to come in on the weekends, right? It was very stressful for me. In fairness, though, I would say my boss he wasn't that nice, but it was a little nicer than I think most bosses in Nigeria would be. And I think that's because I think he probably has a personal connection to sickle cell. So he was a little sympathetic to the times when I would not be doing as well. So it was it was like tunnel vision. All I was doing was work. I would just work, and then I would go home and I would sleep. And then once it was Friday, I would sleep like the whole weekend, and then I'm back on Monday. So it wasn't much for having a life, really, to be honest. So I would say, but that was the only way that I could get back to be able to even function. Because if I had said that I wanted a life and I wanted to go out with friends, like I would probably have had more episodes or more crises at that time than I did.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
I would like to ask.
Welcome back, Tola.
Thank you.
Can you hear us
You're
now?
welcome. I can.
Okay.
Okay,
So
great.
for someone that spent 20 years at the BBC, and how did you manage your sickle cell episodes working? I mean, 20 years staying in a job must have been difficult. How was it like managing your sickle cell episodes while working at the BBC?
Yeah. I was there for 23 years, and yeah, it was difficult, preparing for this evening just took me back to what it was like for me at the very beginning. Initially when I started working at the BBC, I was the only Black female in my department with sickle cell. So you can imagine that combination in the 80s. My counterparts, manager knew absolutely nothing about sickle cell. And as you ladies know, sickle cell is something where we're okay right now. In the next hour, it could be something crazy going on. You know what I'm saying? So that unpredictable nature about sickle cell wasn't easy working at the BBC. It wasn't easy at all, because here I would be working very hard one day, and then the following day, in the middle of the night, as you know how it is, the pain starts by morning.
Yeah.
I can't go into work and I'm falling, you know. And of course, the white man is looking at me and thinking she's a liar. You understand what I'm saying, And so, so I had to deal with all of that at the beginning. And then eventually, what I would then do is take tablets to suppress the pain so I could go to work in the morning. Because once I'm in, even if I do half a day, then it's not counted as sick. You understand? Because, of course, if I keep calling in sick, then I get a query at the end of the year. You understand, or at the end of maybe 6 months, Tola, what's going on? You're always sick. So so it was about knowing how to manage the system that I was in, So the management for me would be to go in and then by afternoon say, look, you guys, I can't work anymore. I'd like to add something to this. During my time when I was working and I was sick, they didn't have what is called a pain clinic. That they have now, you know. And so now when I go to hospital, when I go to the day pain clinic, I see people coming in from work maybe around 3 p.m., 4 p.m. You know what I'm saying? So things are available now to help people who are working. But at the time, it was tough. It was really, really tough. And I know that as a result of it, even though anybody who has sickle cell knows we're hard workers. You know, we work very hard. We go over and above. It's almost as if because
Yeah.
of the sickle cell, we want to prove,
Prove.
we want to prove that we can do it, So, but
Yes.
because I was always sick, I know I was passed on promotion. I know that, you know.
No.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So now that you've transited to what I call freelance with the blogging and all
Yes.
that, has that helped a lot, or it's still something you have to manage running, building a career in that direction?
Well, it has helped in terms of the fact that I'm able to choose when I work, So that's important for me. So living in London, everybody knows there's the winter months. So for me, and it's usually very cold between from December to kind of March. So nowadays, because I work for myself, I'm able to say during those months, I'm not working, I'm not going out to work, and most times, if not for COVID, I'll be in Nigeria, So instead of taking holidays around Easter, summer, I take my holidays when it's cold. It's when it's cold that I need to get out,
Yeah.
So now I try and make sickle cell work for me, as opposed to sickle cell, messing itself up anytime. Now because I've got the flexibility of when to work, when not to work, I can choose my hours. I mean, I'm a magistrate in London, so I go to courts. But I choose my hours. So I prefer it now. I prefer it. And for anyone who's listening to us this evening, I think it's important to perhaps say, look for something that you're passionate about, because sickle cell is, as we know, it's unpredictable. If you're working 9 to 5, if you don't have, like you said earlier, sympathetic bosses, they'll give you a hard time. And that stress doesn't help sickle cell. You all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So if you can find something that you're passionate about, start it, no matter how small. Start it, be your own boss. That's definitely what I would say.
Wow. Wow.
Okay.
I really, really like that. So I also would like to ask Damilola, like, you've lived in 3 countries, you've gone to the US for your master's, you're now living in Canada. How was it for you? Did you find that your parents were a bit scared of letting you go out of the nest? How did you cope with that? How did you overcome those fears to moving to different countries and then working a job?
I mean, so I feel like my parents, well, my dad is okay. My dad is like, she's gonna, like, you're not gonna be here forever, right? So you need to let her sort of do what she wants to do. But my mom, moms are different, right? So she was like, she was very, and I think maybe that's because she was also more involved with like caring for me. So she was very, very afraid. She was afraid of me leaving. She was like quite afraid of like how I would cope and like what I would do and things like that. But I think the deciding factor ultimately was, one, I'm very stubborn. Two, um, I knew it couldn't work. It wasn't working in Nigeria, right? So I was having like all of that trouble with um, a, a boss that was sympathetic, right? I tried to get another job, right? I applied to another job at a bank, right? I scaled through all the interview processes and I got the offer for the job. And then, so I heard this on the last episode you did last week. And I was like smiling because I had gone through the same thing, right? So I got the offer, and then they asked for medicals, right? And I never heard anything back after the medicals. So it's obvious that there is a system in place that discriminates against people with sickle cell. I would like to think it's the one bank, but I doubt it. I'm pretty sure all of them probably all have it in place. Now, if that is not working, then you need to figure out a new plan. And ultimately, my parents are not going to be around forever, right? So there's a lot of support, yes, there's a lot of sheltering, but then what happens when that shelter is not there, right? Then it becomes like you're a full-grown adult and you cannot function on your own, right? So those were some of the insights that sort of influenced my decision to move out. So I did my master's, and then that was like it was a game changer for me because there were all these options that were not available before, right? I was seeing like jobs that you could, so after my master's, I worked at this company where half of their workplace was working from home. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I want this. So, I talked with my boss, they knew I had a medical condition. And, I feel like that's also something we need to start talking about because your boss needs to know. Like, I remember I had like an actual crisis at work in Nigeria, and I was like screaming the whole building down. So imagine if they didn't know anything was wrong, or if they didn't know that I had that condition, they would have just been freaking out, right? So, I had that conversation with my boss when I was in the US, like, okay, there's some days I'm not going to be able to come in, right? Is it okay if I work from home on those days? And she was like, yeah, fine. That's not a problem. And, at a point she also then came back to me and she was like, you know what? Do you feel like you would be comfortable working from home full time? I was like, yeah, I would definitely be comfortable with working from home full time. And so, it just sort of switched my thinking into, okay, like going back to what Mr. Dehinde said about like, you should be your own boss. I don't think it's for everybody, to be honest, right? But I think ultimately what you need to do is figure out a way to make your life work for you and to make sickle cell work for you so that you have a career, because I also think it's important for people with sickle cell to be financially independent. But at the same time, you also need to figure out a way to be both financially independent and have a life and have a career, but not have that career control your whole life. So that was when I sort of decided, okay, I want to go into data analysis. I want to go to business analysis, project management, something that I can actually just, work from home, go in on days when I can. On the days when I can't, I'll just stay home and work from home, right? And so that has sort of influenced the shift in career for me. So I think in Nigeria, it was more of an assignment support role. But now it's more of a thinking, a project coordination, analytical role where I can just sit back and think and be like, okay, what do I want to do? How do I want to do this? And I can do it on my own time. And like, even now that I'm in Canada, right? I've spoken with my boss about it, right? They're aware that I have this condition. And I've told them like, because Canadian winters are notoriously brutal, right? So, we had to have the conversation about how there's going to be some days where once it hits like -15, I'm not going to be coming in because it's just not worth the hassle, right? And again, I would like to say that I'm privileged and I realize that because I'm in a place where those accommodations are sort of recognized. But also we and this is why like these sort of conversations need to happen, so that we can have those accommodations also be available in Nigeria. So there's, if it's too cold, I don't have to go in. If it's if I'm, there was like maybe a couple of months ago, I had a meeting in the morning, and I just like really, really had this bad pain, like maybe 30 minutes before the meeting. And all I had to do was send a message to my boss. I'm like, I'm having an episode right now, and I just cannot do this. And she was like, oh, no problem. I'll take care of it. And it wasn't an issue. And, I love that. It's so amazing. And I want that for every sickle cell warrior out there. That peace of mind to be able to, take time for yourself and not feel guilty about it, or have somebody make you feel guilty about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's very, very powerful.
Yeah. There's something you said, Damilola. You were mentioning something about you went to do your master's. Now, what is the place? And I'm going to ask this question for both of you. What is the place of learning in trying to help ourselves grow in growth, especially when we're trying to build a career, whatever direction we want to go? And how would you suggest people go through it? Because some people might say, oh, I can't go to abroad to do masters, but I'm sure there are processes or periods of learning that we must accommodate.
Right.
So yeah.
Do you want me to go ahead? Okay. So I was going to say that the beautiful thing about technology and about social media and about all these things is that you don't necessarily have to go to the abroad to do your master's, or, there's so many courses. There's data analysis courses online. There's business analysis courses online. There's graphic design courses online. There's UI UX courses online. You can take all these courses and at least start from somewhere. And, in fairness, you're going to have to put in some effort in the beginning, because like, I think most of us did that, like in the beginning where like, you're just, nobody knows you've not done anything. They're like, why should I give you a chance? In that time, that stretch of time where you're just starting out, you might need to sort of have that time where you don't really have a life. And all you're doing is just investing in your career and learning and taking courses and all of these things. But ultimately, it's going to pay off. But, you just need to have that mindset and be ready for it. It might take a year, it might take a couple of years, but eventually you're going to get to a place where you can set your own limits, and you can choose your own work life balance, right? But you have to start somewhere, and you always have to, especially if you're looking to like switch careers, then you have to learn. Like you have to pick something that works for you, that you're actually passionate about, and then you actually have to start learning that thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that data analysis is one of the top skills that is needed now in the world when you talk about top jobs. So I know a lot of us run away from the technical aspects of getting skills, but it's very important. So, Tola, what's your take on this in terms of learning and growth?
I was just thinking as Damilola was speaking, and I was thinking there are so many options, in terms of work, career. Another thing that I have done a lot of and that I'm passionate about is giving back. And by that, I mean doing voluntary work. And I think that is important, because sometimes even if you can't get a paid job, don't just sit idly doing nothing. Do a voluntary work. And sometimes it's through the voluntary work that they will see who you are. They will get to know about your skills, your knowledge. And when a vacancy comes up, they probably will offer you that vacancy. So I'll give you an example of such things during my life. So I was working at the BBC. I'd done my degree in French, done my postgraduate certificate, and after that, I just felt there was more to Tola. There was more to me. And after spending time just, seeking God's face about it, I then was able to come out with the word counseling. At the time, so many people would come to me for counseling. And I thought, okay, if that's the case, I need to get into this area, but I'm working in the media. How do I go about it? I was able to look for adverts locally and talk about being at the right place, right time. There was an advert in the local paper about a charity called Marriage Care, and they had this telephone helpline where people could call and talk about their relationship issues, and they were looking for someone to help them man the phone line. I applied and I got it. I mean, when I applied, they were actually asking me if the local authority had sent me because they'd sent the advert to the local authority. And I said, no, I just called myself. So I started working for them voluntarily. And in my doing so, whilst in there, I found out that they trained people to become counselors. So that's how my journey into counseling started, where they paid for my 2-year course, all because I volunteered my time. So that's how the door to counseling opened to me from then till now. And also at a point in time, whilst I was also working at the BBC, like I said, I'm very much into giving back. I wanted to work in the prison system in this country. And so I started working for a charity that go into prisons to help women who come into prisons for the very first time, to tell them about what their rights are, what they need to know about prison life, what help they could get from the local authority. And in the evenings, I was able to talk with my manager. I would start work early, or sometimes, not have a lunch break so that I could leave early and go to this female prison in London called Holloway Prison at the time. It no longer exists, but it was existent at the time when I was working. As a result of doing that, I was able to set up a charity for foreign national prisoners. So I think voluntary work is very, very important. Now, the thing is, at this point in time, I'm equally an author. I've written 2 books. I'm at the process of publishing my sickle cell book. I hope it comes out at the end of this month. And in order to do that, that was another area for me that, yeah, I've been blogging for over 5 years. I've been writing for Punch for kind of maybe about 4 years as well, or maybe about 5 years actually. And so I had all that experience, and people around me were saying, Tola, turn your blogs into books, do something. But because I'm a perfectionist, I like whatever I do, I like to do it to the best of my ability and to the best of my knowledge, irrespective of sickle cell. I went and I studied. I went back and I did writing courses throughout last year. So 2020, Tola was busy studying. I studied till about, I think, end of March. And then from September, I started writing my books. So like Dami said, especially I think with COVID, what COVID has shown a lot of people now is to know that you can study from anywhere in the world. These institutions, educational institutions, are equally seeing the potential of doing things online. So proximity, having to be there, is no longer an issue. Anything that you want to do, you can go and you can study for it. There are so
Yeah.
many short courses, and if you want a degree, fine. But whatever area you want to get into, study it first so that you know that area. You're coming from a place of knowledge as opposed to, stumbling in the dark. So that's what I
Knowledge,
would
yeah.
say regarding,
Thank you
the
so
issue.
much, Auntie Tola. And there's so many comments on the platform for you. People saying, wow, black, female, sickle cell, wow, amazing at Tola Dende. There's a question directed at you, Auntie Tola. When you took a role at the BBC, did you tell your employers that you have sickle cell?
Yeah.
Please, can you answer that
you know,
briefly?
That is always a
when
major
Dami was
issue.
talking,
That's always drum rolls.
yeah, yeah. It's
That's always
Dami
a
talked
issue.
about it. Yes, it's true. And Dami talked about it earlier on, and I was thinking, I remembered back because I went in on a short-term contract. I went in on a temporary basis. I had no reason to do any medical. So actually, maybe that's another way in for people with sickle cell, in order to fight prejudice, because abroad, of course, people, employers would still employ you because they know that there's a risk of bias and all of that. But in Africa, if they decide they don't want to employ you, that is it. So maybe a way around that is actually to go in
Mm-hmm.
on a short-term contract, because if you go in as a short-term contract, they do not ask for medicals, not as far as I know anyway. So when I started at the BBC, I was only meant to be there for a week. They haven't got the time to be asking for my medicals. But because I got there, approved myself, I stayed on for 23 years. 23 years later, I was still there. So maybe that's another way for people with sickle cell in order to fight the prejudice of being sickly and trying to get a job. Maybe not look for a permanent job, but maybe go in as on a temporary basis where it won't be asked. Or, if you're going for a full-time job, then be honest, be hopeful. I think it's important to believe in yourself. I think it's important to be positive, and not have this woe is me attitude because of sickle cell. I think it's important to, say,
Yeah.
look, this is my truth, and I'm going to talk about it. I'm not going to be ashamed of it. But
Absolutely.
guess what, guys? Even or despite sickle cell, I can do the job of 2, 3 people. And I'm sure you
Yes.
ladies can
Come
attest to
on
that.
now.
That's right. You know?
Well, thank you so much. That's always inspiring. I think one of the things that's like stood in my mind today is your words on volunteering. And I've said it over and over again. People don't
Mm-hmm.
always have to run into a job that is giving you money. You have to start from somewhere. So even if it's
Yes.
photocopying in an in an NGO, start from somewhere. I think that was my journey. I have so many comments for you, Dami,
Exactly.
as well, where people are saying great work. Thank you for your knowledge, and thank you for your honesty as well. And I think the last question is directed for both of you.
Yeah.
Why do they ask for, someone from the US is asking, why do they ask for medicals? Sorry, I'm naive. None of my jobs have mentioned that here. I think she's from the US, that they required a medical exam in the first place. I think this lady is asking from the US. Can anyone answer that? Why were you required to do a medical test before you started working?
Honestly, I think we should throw the medical thing out of the window. I don't know what it's for either. I think it's just a way for them to screen and um, discriminate against people. Because if two people already, one person last week, me this week, have said that they applied for a job at the bank, they got an offer, they scaled through the interview processes, and the only thing that was stopping them was the medical, then we need to acknowledge the fact that there's a there's a structure in place by all of these organizations in Nigeria to systematically exclude people with chronic medical conditions or with disability from the workplace. And if we are seeing that, then we need to throw that out of the window. But I don't know if we're ready to have that conversation yet. That might be a whole other conversation.
To you briefly.
Well, I know that for the medical, it started out as legal reasons, but I don't know. I think some people have taken opportunity to misuse it. Because basically, some companies want to know that, okay, you're fit enough and they don't want to be sued that you employed you and then something happened, you had a heart attack, or because they found out you were not, and they didn't know, or something like that. But I think the challenge with it is that a lot of organizations have misused it to be able to target people they feel, quote unquote, cannot do the work. And rather than spend money on them, okay, let's eliminate them and get the people we know that can do the work. But unfortunately, that is relative.
Okay. I think for me, I would say that
I was trying to see if there's any question.
Sorry?
Go ahead.
Okay.
You can go ahead. I was trying to look for questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I would say that, companies are changing. The world is changing now. So things that were not accepted or that were discriminated against in the past, it's not happening as much now. A lot of companies have their corporate social responsibility side, where they're encouraging, you don't want a workplace where everyone is the same. You know what I'm saying? It's just going to be so boring. So that's why it's important that even with sickle cell, let's try and push, through or break those glass doors down. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Don't limit yourself and think you will not be accepted. More companies are accepting people with one disability or the other now more than they ever did. And in terms of doing the medicals, it's not all companies, quite a lot of companies do. And of course, as Tony said, they've misused it. But I think we're at an age now where diversity is being encouraged with a lot of companies. And so please, if you do have sickle cell, do not limit yourself. Go for what you want to go for.
Sorry, I was going to add that if you are, I don't know if these sort of organizations exist in Nigeria, but if you're in the US or you're in Canada, please know that there are organizations that are actively looking for people with disability, people with chronic medical conditions, and they are connecting them with employers. So if you do your research and you look for those organizations, you're going to find them. Like studies have shown that having a diverse workplace actually makes the company more profitable, more successful. So there's a major shift now. People are looking for diverse people. Like if you just have white people in your company or you just have Black people in your company, how do you have different ideas at the table? In the same vein, if you just have, in quotes, able people at your company, how do you know that this is what your, in quote, disabled customers want, right? Like different ideas at the table can only help your organization. And I think we need to start having more of these conversations. And please know that there are resources out there if you can only do the research or even ask other people.
Yeah.
I think we're almost out of time. So I would just direct one last words to you guys. If you have anything to say to anyone that is worried about being fired in a job or starting their career, what would it be? I will start with you, Tola.
Right. Okay. Well, I think for me, it's about not giving up. Not giving up. I believe that back in the day, people felt that people with sickle cell don't live long. Now that myth has been busted. You know, we've had people with sickle cell who have lived into their 80s and 90s. So do not give up. Whatever it is that you want, that you're believing for in terms of a job, you need to go for it. Don't look at your sickness as a barrier. It is not a barrier. And I'll just like to read something that Maya Angelou said. She said, you may not control all the events that happen to you. So, i.e., sickle cell, you can't control when the crisis come and all of that. She said, but you can decide not to be reduced by them.
Come on now.
And you, Dami, what are your last tips for someone in their 20s that is troubled and being worried about taking a 9 to 5 or starting a business? What would that be?
I think that you need to be mentally ready when you start out, just because it's going to be hard. It's hard for most people. It's hard for everybody, really. But in terms of your health, it's going to be harder for you. And so when you have that knowledge and you accept it, you're able to have coping mechanisms in place to help you out. I think you need to figure out, okay, in this certain frame of time, I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to just go. And the reason I'm saying that is because a lot of the time we kind of have to prove ourselves. But at the same time, you don't want to be on that. You don't want to be at 100 all the time, because it's also draining on you, right? So we also need to remember to take time out for ourselves. There's going to be days when you can't get out of bed. You're just going to have to take that day and be like, yes, today is for sickle cell, right? We take that, we move on. But then the next day you have to get up again and go. Because, and I know we have this a lot where we want to prove that we can do it. And yes, we should prove that we can do it, because we can. But at the same time, you need to be conscious of what are the things that matter to you and that are priority for you. There's no point proving over something that doesn't matter to you, really. And that's why you there's a lot of self-awareness involved with having sickle cell. And the more you do that and the more you question your motives, it helps you to make the best and the most informed decisions for yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes, we've run out of time. So thank you again for being on the show. I think we've answered most of the questions, but I'm sure Dami and Tola, if you shout out your Instagram handle for people to connect with you so that they can ask their questions, or if they have any other thing they want to comment on, they can reach out to you. And Lola will round us up.
Okay. Guys, can you go ahead and just let people know what's your Insta, especially for Dami, any warrior that wants to move to Canada that has fears. Maybe you can give 1 or 2 tips on that one. And Tola, anybody that has counseling needs or mentorship that would like to reach out to you, or stories on their journey with sickle cell, please just also give out your email address or your Instagram handle so that they can reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. If I'm always open, I have people in my DMs asking me questions, and I'm like, if it's about sickle cell, I can talk from now till next year. So I'm always open to talking with people about it, about how coping mechanisms, career talk, moving, and the implications of moving. My handle on Instagram is at Damilola Adeokun, like one word, my first name and my last name. I'm not sure my last name is showing here, but I guess I can go back and like comment it on the post. But yeah, at Damilola Adeokun on Instagram. On Facebook, it's just my name, Damilola Adeokun. That's it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Right. For me, my Instagram handle is TheRealTD05, and my email address is t.dehinde, which is my surname, at yahoo.com. If you do a search on Punch Online and you type my name or you type sickle cell, my articles will come up, and at the end of each article, my email address is there. I've got a blog. My blog is www.howtolivewithsicklecell, all one word, .co.uk.
Thank you so much, ladies, for coming and joining and changing the narrative of women living with sickle cell, trying to build on their careers. I think one of the highlights tonight was Auntie Tola speaking about herself being in a job for 23 years. And
Amazing.
I think that is amazing. That shows tenacity, that shows courage, that shows purpose. So for some warriors that get a job and maybe one day they say, it's not for me. And then the next day they just say, oh, I'm just going to sit at home. Think about this story and let it inspire you. Damilola today has spoken about how she took, she ran out of the nest and she lived in 3 countries and she's done amazing things as well, and how she's relocated and navigated herself in different environments. So for today, I would just like to leave everyone with this last words. Please let sickle cell, taking the words and borrowing Auntie Tola's words, let sickle cell work for you and make sure you're assertive, you're loving yourself and always putting yourself first. Thank you. Over to you, Tola. Over to you, Auntie.
All right, then. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I hope we will be able to get something out of this. Mothers who have children with sickle cell and their experience taking care of their children with sickle cell. And I'm sure it's going to be very interesting. Please prepare your questions down and we'll learn as the day goes. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tola. Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you, Damilola. Thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is a production of Sickle Cell Advocacy and Management Initiative. Thank you. Until then, your life is definitely possible with sickle cell. Thank you, Lola. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.